Good evening and welcome to Nurturing Our Roots. This is Antoinette, and here is my co-host and my cousin, Karran. Hi, Karran.
Hi, Antoinette. Happy Black History Month.
All the same to you. How are you doing?
I'm good. A little exhausted. So much going on, but I'm good.
I know. Especially during this time, Karen, there's so much emphasis put on research. And for me personally, I make it about family history because family history is Black history. Especially, no matter Black history, and if you're Black, that is history, you know. And so it's
Yeah.
been a busy month for me, just not just researching, but mostly preserving my findings you know. So I'm very happy for this hour that Karen and I will be talking about some of the things that we have been working on, some of the workshops that Karen has been participating in, and some of the things that I have been doing as it relates to the Florida parishes preserving that history. So Karen, I got to disappear for a few minutes, right? So in the
Yes.
meantime, I just want to pull something up so that we can go ahead and get started. And to all our followers out there, thank you for joining us. It's a blessing to have so many people who have a thirst for family history.
Yes. And welcome everyone. If you're following us on YouTube in the chat room, welcome. If you have any questions about anything as we are going along, type your questions in the chat room and I will be monitoring them. Questions or comments, and I'll bring them up on the show. If you have not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you hit the notifications bell, you will be notified when we are on live or when we have uploaded a video. As you heard earlier, I was wishing Antoinette and I wish all of you happy Black History Month. And Black history is our history, our family history. It is also American history. And for us, Black History Month is every month of the year, Black History 365, because for many of us, hardly a day goes by when we are not researching our family history. Today, we're going to be talking about some of our current work and some things we have coming up. And this is always exciting for us as we share our history and pass it on down to our other family members. So I hope that you're doing those same things too.
Well, thank you, Karen. I'm back. I have just posted a link on your personal page. And Karen, I was listening to you, and what you were saying is that, we're not only researching, but it's like we're leaving a roadmap for other people. And what really inspired me to do that years ago, Karen, was the fact that when I first started researching in 1994, that was so little. And so at in the middle or at the end of my journey of research, I want to sit back and look at what do I want that framework to look like right now. And what am I doing to preserve my findings, tons of photographs that come to me, so much that I was able to clean out my office. It took 1 year to get some more funeral programs out of the house. Well, today we donated them to the Center for Southeast Louisiana Studies.
That's
So,
wonderful.
so before we get into that, tell us about the workshop that you did in Donaldsonville. How did that go?
It went really well. It was virtual, and we had 294 people register. Of course, you never get as many show up, but we had 294 people register for the workshop. And I was talking about the GU 272. Those are the people who were sold by the Jesuits of Georgetown University. And so I was more specific to Ascension Parish, Louisiana. Um, when they were sold in 1838 by the Jesuits, they were placed on plantations in Ascension, Iberville, and Terrebonne Parish. And so what I did was I went through all the documents that I could find related to those families and I pulled out the surnames that were more specific to that parish, because I am currently working with the River Road African American Museum, who received a grant from the Social Science Research Council through the American Slavery's Legacy Across Space and Time project. And our work with that museum is focused on the Episcopal Church that was purchased, the land was purchased for and was built by former Governor Henry Johnson, who was one of the purchasers of the GU 272. And so part of our work is to put an exhibit in that Episcopal Church that honors the people he purchased. And so as we lead up to the reveal of that exhibit, which is going to be on I think June 18th, which is the day before Juneteenth in this year. As we lead up to that, we wanted to begin to help some of the families in the area figure out if they are connected to that history. And so I thought that if we looked at some of the surnames in that area and then talk about that in a workshop, we could help people figure out if they are connected to that history. And I wanted to just share briefly a little bit, because this is not the end of the workshops. We're going to do another workshop. And I just want to share briefly a couple of slides about connecting to that history and also specifically the surnames. But Antoinette, as I was going through this work, I found at least 120 other surnames in Ascension Parish that married into the families that were brought from Maryland.
Oh, really?
So if you think about back in 1838, the number of families that would have been there, that's a lot of families on from one plantation, marrying into the people who were on one plantation. I would expect that some of the people were from surrounding plantations or surrounding communities. But I found 120 surnames that married into those families. But I want to just briefly share some of the major surnames, because we still want people to try to see if they connect to that history. That way, when the exhibit opens, the exhibit will have a lot more meaning to them.
Right.
And I know sometimes these things are hard to see on the screen, but I'm sorry.
We can see it.
Oh, wonderful. So the names I have highlighted in red are some of the families that were a part of the sale in Ascension Parish. All of these are surnames of people who were enslaved by the Jesuits all over the country: Maryland, Illinois, Kentucky, and the St. Louis area, also in Louisiana and Alabama. But these surnames: Adams, Blacklock, Blair, Brown, Butler, Campbell, Cunty, Crimble, Cutchmore, Dorsey, Eaglin, Ford, Greenleaf or Green, Harris, Harrison, Hawkins, Henry, Hill, Jones, Johnson, Kelly, Langley, Lee, Mahoney, Nolan. And I pay particular attention to the Nolan.
Right, that's right.
Plowden, Riley, Winderry, Ware, West, and Yorkshire. Those are some of the families that were brought to this parish. And then this is the long list of names, which I will not read, but this is the long list of names of the families that married into that first group that was in red. And so as you can see, that is a lot of families. And I'm gonna stop sharing for just a second.
Can you hold it there for 1 minute?
Sure.
Looking at that name, Fluker, and there's Fluker, Louisiana, which is not very far from where I am. And that name Fluker was given by one of the enslaved, the people who held Africans in slavery. So that name, Fluker, I have to give you more information on that particular name.
Okay, yeah, because a lot of these names come from some documents on the American Ancestors GU 272
Mhm.
website, where they have a PDF document for each one of the families, that for many of the families, not all of them, but for many of the families that were sold. And in that document, they mentioned the people who married one of the families that was sold to Henry Johnson. And so I went through all these different documents and pulled out all of those surnames because I wanted those families in the area. Like I know that McCall, there's a plantation right near the Henry Johnson's plantation in Ascension Parish. That was the McCall plantation. I know that just across the parish line,
Mhm.
there were Randolphs enslaved on the Thompson plantation. And many of us know Julians. We know Julian. There are a lot of Julians in New Orleans who come from Ascension Parish. And so I wanted people to look at these names, and it may be so, just one part of these families married into, except for
Right.
the Randolphs. The Randolphs, they had many Randolphs marry many different GU 272 descendants. But I just wanted people to be familiar with these surnames.
And I'm looking at the Wheelers there, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
also looking at the Richardsons, which that's my family name, the Richardsons, and the Wheelers are right here in Tangipahoa Parish. I'm just basically saying those surnames. And when you look
Mm-hmm.
at Hubbard, you think about New Orleans, So thank you so much for sharing this. This would be, and I guess it would be worth looking into for me with the Wheelers and the
Mm-hmm.
Richardsons, the
Yeah,
Flukers.
especially if you have some that came to Ascension Parish in any way. And I have seen some links between some of the families and some of the Ascension families and Tangipahoa. So
Okay,
a lot of times that's tied to the white slaveholder
that's
and
right.
his business dealings, or the women who got married and they may have taken a part of somebody's family and moved to another part of the state. And
Okay.
so that's something that we have to be focused on. And then there's one other slide I want to share that's more focused on DNA. Let's
Okay.
see if okay, it popped up good. So this slide is in particular to four of my family members. One is, I have on here maternal aunt, but number one is actually my paternal aunt. And so you know who that particular aunt is. She matches one of the Georgetown Memory Project DNA kits that's on Ancestry. And and so a lot of times I'll hear people say, "Oh, I match this particular kit." AH is one of the families tied to Ascension Parish, and so my aunt matches AH. That does not make my aunt a descendant. You always have to do the research to make sure that you are focused on the family line that is actually tying into that surname. And when you have distant matches, you could be looking at sometimes 20 or 40 different family lines. And so just matching one kit doesn't make you a descendant. And then number two is my cousin, one of my maternal cousins, and he is matching a few of the kits. And because I looked at the family trees of those kids, I can tell that he is connecting somehow to the Brown and the Queen family in Maryland. Well, his mother was a Brown, and I have been able to trace one of her ancestors who has some lineage in Maryland, but now I have a lot more work to do to find out the specific ancestor. So I can't say for certain that he is a direct descendant of Jesuit enslavement, but he may be, because I also know that he matches several other descendants who are not a part of these test kits, but these are also people who have verified their lineage back to Jesuit enslavement or back to the areas in Maryland where the Jesuits enslaved people. Then number three is one of my cousins that I share with my husband, and she has done the research to trace her lineage back to someone who was a part of that 1838 sale. And so that lineage is on her father's side. She matches me on my mother's side, but she is related to my husband on her father and his side. And so because she has done her research, plus she has the DNA links to all of these families, it is clear to see that she is also a descendant of Jesuit enslavement. Whereas with number 1 and number 2, it is not so clear to see because the research does not yet support it. And I will keep emphasizing the research. It's, as much as I love working with DNA in and of itself can't necessarily say that you are or not a particular descendant. And then number 4 is my husband, who matches 13 of the kids. That's why you see the arrow up to the side. And because of the research, I know that he had 9 direct ancestors who were a part of that 1838 sale. And as you could see, being related to 13 of the test kits, that doesn't even begin to talk about all the other descendants who have tested on their own. So he may have had 9 direct ancestors, but almost everybody in that cell was a relative.
Yeah.
Could you imagine over 300 people sold and you are related to 99% of them? And so that's a small part of what we talked about on the workshop this past weekend with the River Road African American Museum. And I really enjoyed the presentation. I am looking forward to doing more of that research as we get ready for the exhibit that's going to open up on June 18th of this year.
That's a lot of great work. That's a lot of great work. What I want to share with everybody, thank you for that, Karran.
You're welcome.
We had been over a year collecting, I guess I have to say, we're big upon these funeral programs. So Nurturing Our Roots have partnership with Richardson's Funeral Home in preserving the funeral programs. Now, Richardson's Funeral Home is not the only one that I hope that would do this, but they are pioneering. So this is just a few of the most colorful programs you can see. They're extensive and how colorful they are. And
beautiful.
Yes. So let me just share some more photographs. Finish that. And it took me a while, Karran, because what I did was I created like a database for them. And so today we always choose February to donate the collection to the Center for Southeast Louisiana Studies. So I really wanted the owners of the funeral home to see just how these funeral programs are preserved. So they got to see it once it was processed, once the collection was processed. In each folder, the folders are in alphabetical order, and the folder will say that's 29, that's 65, whatever it is. So if a person is looking for their family member, they can go online, look at the index online, and when they get to Southeastern, the Center for Southeastern Studies, they would know what box they're looking in, and that would help. So I was really happy today that we did that, but I just want to share another photograph. And so today we donated over 600.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was over 600 funeral programs that was donated today. And so, let me see, here it is. That's a lot of programs, Karran.
It sure is.
And that's just that one box. But I had a photograph of how we had them laid out on the table so people can really see. Just give me a minute. So people can really see the process. Oh, I found it. In addition to that, Karran, we donated 14 books to Southeastern Today. Now, what's in the books? There's a volume of books dating back to the year of 1970. And in that book is the index of the deceased person, when they died, the informant, where they died, their occupation. And so the books went all the way up to 2008.
And
So
where are they? What parish? Those are those from Tangipahoa as well?
no, it's not. It's anyone that was buried by the funeral home.
Okay.
Yeah, not just that particular area. Let me see if I can find, because I really want you to see what these books look like.
I could use a book like that for New Orleans, because just last night I was sharing with one of my cousins an obituary that I found from one of our it was my 2 times great uncle, her great uncle, and I didn't realize he had lived till 1973. I'm like, I remember 1973. I don't remember hearing about him. And I mean, I remember hearing about him, but almost as if he was dead, not that he was alive. And my cousin remembers going to his funeral.
Well, I thought that I had the books out, but I will definitely put up some, while we're talking about other things. But this entire box is full of those books.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so there's a volume. And so I think where it is, they hold on to those books maybe about 3 years, because like I said, one was from 1970 to 1972. And so when they finish with the book, they would donate the book to the collection. So all the programs that you see right here, they're in alphabetical order, and that makes it preserving it very easy. It makes it easier and faster for them to go ahead and process the collection.
Absolutely.
And in addition to that, I want to show the viewers some of the type of photographs, and you're going to love this photograph. I did donate the original one because I did not want to keep any of it in my home.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Isn't that a beautiful picture? So there's your grandmother, her first cousins. These two ladies are her first cousin, and that is your great grandfather's sister, Bertha Harrell.
Which one?
The lady with the dress on.
Oh, okay. Okay. Looking all stylish.
Yes, you see that, huh? So I donated those pictures, and there was some other photographs that I donated because I said, Karran, I did not want these photographs in my home. Once when my mother passed away, my brother gave me a collection from my mom, and this was in that collection. And so this is my grandmother's sister. And you can see it's an original photograph. I was looking at the old television there. That is part of the collection as well.
Wow.
Not a part of Richardson's collection, but a part of my personal collection. The last photograph I'd like to share, it is such a, hold on, here it is. This is the Ponchatoula Color School. And so Eddie Pons with the Drum newspaper met me over there today. And he's able to identify quite a few of these educators. So we're going to go back to Southeastern and make a list of all the people that he can identify. The only one that I know is Mr. Gideon Carter, who was a principal, but everyone else he can identify. So I was really happy with those accomplishments, Karran, because it has really been a label of love. I mean, just finding photographs, that's the one thing all of us want is photographs. And something else that I found too, I found a lot of pictures in the Library of Congress. And though some of those pictures was relating to like the Strawberry Festival here, everybody know about the big Strawberry Festival in Ponchatoula, but not that many people look at the Black folks that was picking the strawberries, that were sharecroppers. Now, we may not be able to identify a lot of people in those pictures, but at least we have them.
Right.
Wow. So that's something that I took my time and I've been working on that. So what I decided to do, Karen, is this is my second year of cleaning my files out. So I do have a lot of other things that will go to the Amistad. So there's a box right here waiting to go to the Amistad. And so those are things that relates to New Orleans research, especially the Harrells in New Orleans.
Which is behind me, the Harrells in New Orleans.
That's right. So
let's see, this is I go lean this way. That's my grandmother right there. Then my dad. We never figured out who that little girl is with my dad, right?
I know someone told me that was one of his sisters.
Oh, then I wonder. Well, then that
Selena, I think Selena's
that would have to be Selena.
Yeah, Selena's name was on the back of that photograph.
Okay, because Carmen is closer to my age, so so that would have to be Selena.
Yeah, so those are the things that we're working on. Now, I would like to really point out to everybody that your family history is America's history. It is. And we can't stress enough right here on Nurturing Our Roots. If you're going to get started, I would say to everyone, get to the oldest person in your family and start to record them. First of all, interview them, record them. And it's very important that you find a system where you can process that interview and keep that interview in more than one place, just in case something should happen with one format or one system, you have another system. But please, whatever you do, just start contacting that family member and interviewing that family member and process the interview. Is there any questions coming from the chat?
Just a couple of comments. I asked who in the chat had a funeral program collection. And Connie Green says, my cousin in Mississippi has garbage bags full of obituaries, and I'm trying to get copies. They came from older relatives that passed and left them in homes.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty amazing. And Gold Teeth PhD says, love your show. I am going after the obituaries in Berkeley County, South Carolina.
Wonderful.
We could get a lot more information. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say we could get so much more information out there on the internet if folks will start going through the family funeral programs and obituaries that their family members have and get them, as you did, cataloged and digitized and get them donated. Get them donated to places that will digitize them and get them put on the internet. That would help so many people with doing their research.
Karen, one of the other things besides the genealogy information that I found in those funeral programs was some of the civil rights leaders in this community. And if it wasn't for those funeral programs, like Dr. Samuel Hyde said today, we wouldn't know, And so when we think about those funeral programs, we think about them as it relates to genealogy information, but I was able to find information on some of the civil rights movement, civil rights pioneers in this community. And so it helped to fill in those missing pieces to the puzzle.
Absolutely.
About the history. So that's why it was very, very important.
And keep in mind that, except for a few of the African-American newspapers, what was going on in our communities and who the people were was not documented in the major newspapers. So these funeral programs are a great source of information to document the history that was going on at that time.
And next month, I'm going to be doing a special segment on when I do the Florida Parishes Preserving Our History. Richardson's Funeral Home is going to come on and talk about the importance of these funeral programs, and hopefully they will inspire other funeral homes to do the same, to not throw them away.
So there's a question from the chat. Gold Teeth PhD wants to know any tips on approaching the funeral homes in the past when just asking.
You can ask them if you go and you talk to the funeral director or the secretary. You can ask them if they have any funeral programs. And if so, what are they going to do with them? And if not, would they mind if they take them off their hand and to preserve them? And they can always come back and refer to our Zoom sessions, Nurturing Our Roots, to look at the importance of preserving those funeral programs. And Richardson's Funeral Home has gotten a lot of PR simply because of these funeral programs and because it wasn't any other funeral home doing that in this area. And so once again, Genealogy is pioneering. And so what we're finding, like for instance, let me give you one finding in a funeral program. Robert Parker, who made the song Barefootin', and it was one of those songs that was really popular.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yes. And so when WBRZ News out of Baton Rouge contacted me, they met me at Richardson's Funeral Home, and they went over some of this very history that we're talking about. Another person that comes to mind is Shirley Cross Temple, who was taught by George Washington Carver, and she had an opportunity to serve him. So it's a wealth of information. We just need to talk to those funeral homes as well as those people in the family that may have an extensive collection. And this is what I will say to people. Sometimes they don't want to release them, but sit down and you might have to consult with them several times and let them know, ask them the question. If and when you pass away, it's not if, but when you pass away, have you made arrangements for your extensive collection? What would you want to see happen to this collection? Now, Karran, of course, I could have chosen anyone in the family. I could have chosen you to give family photographs to. I could have chosen Montera. But I thought about what would happen if something happens to you. What happens if something happens to Montera? Well, it would be the same as in my house. So when I made that decision to move it outside of my home into a center or university or the research center, I made a conscious decision to put it where I know it would be of a service to everyone that's researching, not just okay, I gave it to you, Karran. Now you have to look at what am I going to do with this?
Yeah, getting it out of our houses makes the most sense. Getting it to where it can somehow get online so that it has the broadest reach. That makes the most sense.
And speaking about online, let me just pull it up. You can continue talking while I do this.
Well, while you're pulling that up, there is a question. Did Louisiana have burial associations? I was told I could come look at those records in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And I'm assuming that might mean the benevolent associations.
Yeah, and they did. But once again, where is the collection? Because
in somebody's house.
In somebody's house. And if that person passed away, they can be really thrown away and not to be seen again. So since you were speaking about online, Karran, I want to pull this funeral program up. Okay, and this is online. Now, of course, Southeastern does not put theirs online this way, but there is an index. So let me just, there it is. It took a little. I saw this one today because this is one of the ones I donated today. And so when you click on it, it will give you, all right, let me just do this. So a person can just print it from their home.
That's
because
great.
if family members live away out the state, they can't go to the funeral, right? And the first thing they want to know, can you mail me a funeral program? Well, they don't have to do that now. If they're in this area and that funeral home has donated to a place that will digitize it. I know the East Baton Rouge Parish Library digitized the funeral programs. And so there it is. So, and it's the entire program. It's not just one segment of it, as you can see.
You know, Antoinette, what will be a good service for the funeral homes to start offering now that we are in such a technological age is once the family has created their program, they could send that digital file over to the funeral home, and the funeral home could start putting those on their website. They can upload it in real time, so they don't even have to wait till, the families outside of the area won't have to wait until weeks later, or months later, or years later. They could see the funeral program itself just from the website on the day of the funeral.
I totally agree with you. Now, something else I want to show you. Now, we was talking about the digital, having them online, okay? So I want you to look at now, if we go to Southeastern, you see that in folder 1, box 1, folder 1, and that's the A's, you can see it's there, but you can't see the funeral program itself. So that's the difference here.
Right, and you have to go there to see it.
You physically have to go there. But I did get clearance with the executive director, Dr. Samuel Hyde, before I took them over to East Baton Rouge Parish, because I did not want to compromise or have there be a conflict of interest since the collection is there. And he said, I don't see why it couldn't be there, but so this is what you will see if someone, let's say, was looking for Larry David Barnett, they would have to actually go there. But they will see from 1952 to 1994 is when he died. And so that's very important. And the databases that I created, so just don't take and just give it to them like that. I will show you the database. So it's a lot goes into it, Karen, but it's well worth it,
Absolutely.
All right, here it is. Okay, now before I give it to them, I spend hours and hours. I can't tell you how much time, but I'm getting better at it. So, and it's moving along quicker. So when, and your database can look like anything that you want it to look like. I chose the surname, the given name, the year the person was born, and the year that person died. Now, I also, on some of them, I added the cemetery where they died, where they're buried at. So when I give it to them, I keep a database for myself, Karen, and that way I know when I was in there. And this database consists of 28 pages.
Wow.
So I know what's in there. And so, and that helps them to get this this collection process much faster.
So there's another question from the chat. Do you ladies have any books for sale?
Yes, I have the images of African Americans in the Louisiana, in St. Helena and Tangier Parish. And I have a coloring book for children. That's just as important, Karen, because with children, we want to teach them about what is your mother's maiden name if she's married? What is your grandmother's maiden name? Where are they from? That's very important that we start teaching the children the importance of family history. Another thing that I'm working on right now is talking about land with children, talking about property with children. We must start somewhere educating them on, it's not just about researching the family history. You do know that. And if anybody have opened up a succession, genealogy is so important to that succession because you have to know the names of those individuals that is, if that person had family, when they children, grandchildren, who's the next heir in line. So genealogy is a very important part. But
Have
that's,
you ever conducted a workshop using those coloring books with children?
I haven't done it specifically for children, but they are available when I'm doing the workshops for people. But I think that's a great idea, that I need to look at why is it important um, to conduct a genealogy workshop for children, not just for information purposes only, but to help them to understand what is heirship, what does it mean to be an heir, what am I heir of, And so that's very important, because we want to think about passing on generational wealth, not generational poverty. And Karran, well, you know this for a fact, we have owned and possessed thousands of acres of land as a whole. Look at Bernice, the work that Bernice Bennett is doing. It's outstanding that Bernice is highlighting that we were homesteaders, and our family members was homesteading 200 acres, 80 acres, but whatever it was, they was homesteading. And you know it right now, like everybody else know it. Housing is going up. People
Yes.
can't afford to buy land. They can't afford to buy houses. So that's why we have to be a good steward over what we have. And in order to do that, like we salute our own ancestor, Emma Mead Harrell, who purchased land.
Yeah.
1896, Karran. When most people couldn't read and write. Here it was, she was purchasing land as a woman.
Which is amazing in and of itself.
In and of itself. And how many people in the family really know what the legal description of that property looked like? How many people really know where the land is located? Have they been there? What is the latest activities on those properties? And so genealogy is more than just looking for records. It's also helping us to, take care of our family business as well.
Well, getting back to the idea, the concept of doing a workshop for children with those coloring books, I was just thinking how cool it would be to do that type of a workshop, but also make sure that parents and grandparents are invited, so that right there in that workshop, those children can begin to ask their parents and grandparents some of the questions.
Oh, that was nice.
Yes.
And child could receive a activity book, because it's not just a coloring book, it is a fill in the blanks. And so that would be somewhat like a textbook for them, a workbook for them, and they would get to keep it.
So how can someone get those coloring books? Gold Teeth PhD says, I'll pass out some of those coloring books at our next family reunion.
Okay, they can email me at nurturingourroots@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get them some. That's nurturingourroots@gmail.com. Because
that's such a great idea to pass them out at family reunions.
And you want the children, like you just said, that was a very good idea. Have them to talk to that family member right there. Talk to grandmother, go a little bit further. Give that child some type of device that they can record the oral history as well.
Absolutely. Everybody got iPads and iPhones and all kinds of other, devices that can record, as we are reviewing Black history during Black History Month. That is the perfect type of activity that I would expect some libraries, because they often have workshops on the weekends during Black History Month. Doing a children's workshop would be something that should be standard everywhere, every year.
Especially, Karran, since they're talking about the critical race theory, eliminating a lot of the history, but you cannot eliminate family history. And family history is the venue that would take you into all the history, local history, national history. That's just family history. I do want to point out too that when I created this children activity book, I use my grandkids as the characters.
Mhm.
So in the book, they will visit the cemetery and they have to write down the cemetery, the parish or the county or the state. Um, there's questions in the activity book. Where was your grandmother born? What was her? Do you know her mother's name? And all of that will be in the book, and that child get to keep that book as an informational family tree for them.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You
Yeah.
know, you were talking, about how critical, the attack on African American history disguised as critical race theory.
Uh-huh.
Um, as I do this research in Ascension Parish, some of the things we are learning as, doing reconstruction,
Mm-hmm.
we had in that area the first Black sheriff uh,
Uh-huh.
coming from the descendants of those people who were purchased by former Governor Henry Johnson. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Within that same family, you had a descendant who became the president of Grambling University, and from the same family, a descendant who was one of the founders of Southern University. If that's not American history, I don't know what is.
Right, right. I just want to show you something here. Like you see that questionnaire right there. Now I use Grandpa Alexandria, and Larry Perkins did the illustrations for me. And this is about Alexandria. So that person would go in and like one question. My grandfather's name is. My grandfather was born in the state of. My grandfather's birthday is. What type of work does your grandfather do? What special memories do you have of your grandfather? Did your grandfather give you a special family heirloom? What did your grandfather give you? And it goes on to talk about just information that would be helpful, and the same question is about the grandmother. What is your grandmother's name? And a lot of times, Karen, you know this for a fact, that people will read a funeral obituary in the newspaper and they don't know that person's name. They say, what is her name? We always call her Aunt Lottie. So what is her name?
I just went through that last night as I was talking to my cousin. And so
Uh-huh.
I ended up having to contact another cousin. I'm like, what's your dad's name? Because my cousin, the one I was talking to in Texas, she only knew him by the nickname.
Uh-huh.
And I knew of a different nickname that I thought he was. Well, it turns out we both were right. And because once I contacted his son, I was able to get the actual information.
See,
And
right, right.
one other thing about those coloring books, because of how things are with COVID, and so many families aren't able to see their family members. I haven't seen my granddaughter in person since January 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't it be great if people uh, purchased them and sent them wherever, sent the coloring book wherever, and set a date with their family member, their grandchild, their niece, their nephew, whomever. Set an appointment to let them interview them over the phone or, FaceTime, Zoom, or however,
Yes, yes.
they want to do it. But so don't let the proximity to the child stop the show.
Mm-hmm.
Mail those coloring books out to various children in the family so that they could do that. So that's a really nice bonding experience as well as learning experience so that those children can begin to learn that family history.
That is so true, Karen. And we have to strengthen family back to what it used to be. And I think that genealogy is one of the subjects that can bring families together. Of course, there's a lot of things in everybody's family that sometimes push families apart, but life is too short. We need to really
Mhm.
If there's any atonement that needs to take place, any amending that needs to take place. But the one thing that we do not want to do is keep families separated, because we're stronger together. We're so much stronger together.
Absolutely. And it happens in all families where
Every family.
somebody's mad with somebody and they don't speak to them for years, or they just kind of, what the old folks say, handle them with a long handle spoon, you know. But it's just, COVID has definitely shown us life's too short. A whole wing of your family could be wiped out in no time flat.
No time.
And it's just, life's too short for this craziness.
It really is. When I think about Richardson's funeral home, well, the founder and the founder and owner of Richardson's funeral home, Thomas Elliott Richardson, and my grandmother was brothers and sisters. So you see how family working together, coming together to work collectively together, we are much powerful. We are much stronger. And I share a lot of photographs and information on the pages that I operate, like the Harrell family page. I share on the Richardson's family page. I share photographs because I want you all to have them, just in case something happened, Karran, like a tornado, hurricane, or something destroy my home. One thing I know, that I have those photographs in more than one place.
Yes, yes.
And I hope that other family members would do the same, but I haven't really seen anyone add anything to the page. Speaking about that, I shared the photograph of your family's home on Donaldsonville Street.
Oh.
And it had over 2,000 views.
Wow.
On this site called It Ain't There No More in New Orleans.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I found some too of cousin Juanita's home across the street from the St. Bernard housing project. And so I'm going to share that. And it snowed in New Orleans that year. And so you can see that as well. So we must share. That's the one thing I want to say. When our hands are like this, nothing can get in.
Right.
But if we do like this, right? As much as I share, I receive just that much.
And it does us no good. It does me no good to hold on to all the photographs. I want other people to have access to them. I also put mine up on Flickr, just to have them out there on the internet. But of course, I could do a whole lot more with sharing and giving photographs to family members as well.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do. We need to share. We need to share oral history. We need to share some of the old documents that we may find. Of course, not sensitive things, but if there's something dated back to 1919, that sort of information back in that time and period, I would say share, because, when I go to bed at night, I am very comfortable with the fact that I know I am cleaning out my office. I'm cleaning out my files. I'm not entrusting my husband or my two sons to do something with something they know nothing about. And if
or burdening them, because it could be a burden.
Yes, exactly. It could be a multiple things. And so I am so happy to know that that's where I am now. If 30 years I spent collecting, Karran, it may take me every bit of 5 years to really get rid of everything that's in here. Now, I am not saying that I will not have a digital file, but I will not have the paper files in here like I've been having.
Makes sense. Makes all the sense in the world.
Any questions or comments?
Let's see here. We need a guide to talking to elders. We expect everything to be laid out, and Southern folks don't share deep stuff like that. I had to ask, how did y'all deliver babies from before someone told me? Then it says how did y'all deliver babies before someone told them who the medicine woman was in the town.
Mhm. And on that note, I'm gonna say that we're talking to a generation, let's say a lot of 70s. And when they say we don't know anything, and you hear them say that back in that time and period, they wasn't allowed to sit around the old folks while they was talking. You had
Mhm.
to go outside and play. So please understand that generation is not making that up. They was not allowed to sit around grown folks as they talk. So they may not know a lot of things. So we have to learn from that generation. Okay, what do we do? How do we handle this now? How do we look at what do we want to share with the children? How do we bring them into this conversation? Because right now we're the elders. We are
We
the
are. We are.
you know and and so we want to make sure that we share the information. But some of the older people in their 80s and 90s, I find that if their mind is sound, they do want to talk about it. They
Mhm.
want to talk about those people who they lived with, their sisters, their brothers, their mom and their dad, their friends. They want to share that information. The thing is, are we willing to listen?
So true. So true. And I think some people are, but I think not enough. As you know, within most families, and as I talk to other people doing this work, we are like, we might be like the only one in our family, or one of a handful in our family who is doing the work. Others are say they're interested in it, but they're not so interested to do some of the research. And so when we're depending on a small number of family members to pull all this stuff together, we absolutely have to be focused on how we're preserving it so it could be shared, since so many people within our families are not focused on it.
Exactly. And so that's why it's very important that we look at ways of preserving and sharing. It's multiple ways that we can share, because I have watched technology evolve. When I first started researching, no, there was no such thing as all the technology that's available now. Now, I haven't really um donated a lot or became a contributor to some of the USGen websites, but
Mhm.
I am planning on doing that. I said by the first of next year, I do want to retire from some things, because it's going to take me coming into my office and contributing to those sites. Because Karen, there's nothing sometimes on Black people, because there's nobody contributing to the sites.
Yes, we have another comment. We need to try to get some of them to do DNA tests as well, so we can compare and figure things out. Sometimes the oral histories aren't accurate for various reasons, and you must have been reading my mind, Jeremy Collins Sr. I was just I was actually waiting for you to finish, because I was going to bring that up, because you talked about getting the oral histories. We still have to verify those oral histories with
Mhm.
research and documentation,
Exactly.
so that we have the accurate information. And then those DNA tests, Jeremy, could also help further confirm that the family history is accurate. Because as most of us know, we have been told grandma so and so was 100% Native American because she had a long black ponytail that she always wore. That story is in almost everybody's family. And then you start doing the research, you're not coming across the Dawes rolls or any type of information that leads you to Native Americans. Or you do the research and you do come across it. Or you
Mhm.
do the DNA test, and most of the time the DNA test is only going to, if you have the Native American ancestry, it may not show up in all of the family members. Like, it doesn't show up in me, but it shows up in my aunt. Two different lineages of Native American ancestry shows up on her DNA test. And I did have some family history about Native Americans being in the family, but I still have to do the research to track down specifically who those people were. So you have to verify those oral history stories.
And to add to that, another way to get them to take the test, the DNA test, you actually have to buy it.
That's what I have. I don't have a problem buying them.
Right.
I buy the test, and as long as they agree to let me be a manager of the test, and most people agree to do the test. Especially once I show them how much information we can get from them.
Right. And especially if it doesn't give a cost to them. You know, just ask them if there's a family member that is a caretaker, you know, explain to them, because sometimes, you know, if it's an elderly person, they'll say, well, you got to ask my daughter or my son. So make sure that you build a relationship with them and let them know that why you're doing it and what purposes you will use it for. And I feel like as long as you do that, you may open some doors for yourself quicker than just saying, take the DNA test.
I have 2 DNA tests sitting right next to me, right in front of me. And any family member who wants a DNA test, they are welcome to have one of these, as long as I get to manage the DNA so that I could use it for the research. You know, none of my family members have to buy one. I have it right here.
Well, Karran, it's 8:00 and our time has got away so quickly. Is there any more questions or comments coming out the chat before we close?
Oh, just from Jeremy, everyone sure does have those Native American stories.
Yeah, well, we want to thank everyone once again for joining us right here on Nurturing Our Roots live Zoom session. And we look forward to bringing some more topics before you. And if you would like to be a guest, please email us at nurturingourroots@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to have you to come on and talk about your family history, your research, not just your family history, but we want to hear about what your research journey is like too, because there's a lot of different journeys and different places that your research will take you to.
I forgot to say one thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Forgot about our trip.
Yes.
Yes, the Descendants of Jesuit Enslavement group. We are planning a trip July 10th through the 17th to the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Arizona. We have set aside a block of rooms. If you are interested, email us at nurturingourroots@gmail.com. Antoinette and I will both be there. And it's going to be a week of research and sharing with each other. You know, after these 2 years of being cooped up because of COVID, we're going to get out there and go do some research. There are just millions of records available at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah.
So thank you for that announcement. And once again, if you would like more information, you can contact us at nurturingourroots@gmail.com, and we'll be happy and delighted to send you more information. But if you're a researcher, this is the place that you would want to be. So once again, thank you for joining, and thank you, Karran, for co-hosting. And
You're welcome.
See everyone next month.
Thank you, everyone. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to Nurturing Our Roots. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified of all of our videos. And if you have further comments, please leave them in the comments below.